The Book of Honey, by Isaida Rochas, Chapter 12, Dr. Meili de Khajeer, August 11, 2030, 3 p.m. William, Honey was taken to the car. She passed out for the entire ride. Beck instructed me to drive to a house overlooking Hyde Park. It was a 3-story Victorian townhouse. It may have been a couple of duplexes renovated into one building. A sign read Dr. Meili de Khajeer, a clinic for alternative healing practices. I let out a whistle when Beck says, "Don't whistle, it's a clinic run by my wife." I say, astounded. "What, you're married?" My shock couldn't be contained. Beck tells me, "Well, sort of." I asked Beck, very confused at his meaning. "What do you mean by sort of?" Beck tells me, "It's complicated, I have no time to tell you, William. So, help me get Honey inside. This time I'm able to pick her up without any problems." I follow Beck up the walkway. There is a receptionist that looked oddly familiar. She greeted Beck as if she knew him. "Hello, Bruce." He greeted her right back. "Hello, Betty Liu, is Meili de in?" "Yes, sir, she is." "Tell her I'm going to room 450, it's important." Betty Liu looked at Honey and me, picking up the phone, telling Beck, "Bruce, go right ahead, and I'll tell her." We walk to an elevator. Beck hits the button to the top floor. He leads me to a room marked 450. The building had old architecture on the outside, but the inside was modern and spacious. The room had an examining table. It connected to what I assumed was an old sitting room turned into a patient room. William put her on the table. Beck goes to a closet to get some blankets to cover her up. Beck and I sat in chairs. A few minutes later, the door opens. An attractive Asian woman walked in. She was wearing a pinstriped suit in pink and black. Her hair was short and well styled. She wore very expensive jewelry. Her eyes came off as calm. Her smile was warm and inviting. She walks into the room like she owned the place. I was sure that she did. Beck and I both stand as she enters the room. I shook her hand, then Beck kissed her on both cheeks. She says this in an English accent like someone native to this island. She greets Beck warmly. "Bruce, it's so good to see you." It was like a greeting you would hear from two friends meeting after a long time away. Beck says to the doctor, "You as well, Meili de. Sorry for the short notice, it's important. This is my associate, William Sheeran. William, this is Dr. Meili de Khajeer. The young lady in our care is sick, we need you to look at her." She looks at Honey and then at Beck and me. "Let me take a look, you can go into the other room," Beck says to her before she could put us out. "I can't do that, Dee. She may panic if she wakes up in the care of someone she doesn't know. So, I insist that I stay just in case." Dr. Khajeer raises an eyebrow at Beck. I take it as my cue to leave. It was some time when they called me to move her to the bed. Honey is given an IV and put on antibiotics. The doctor says she was exhausted and had a bacterial infection. She was put on meds and given rest for the next 5 days. Beck and the doctor went off to talk. So, I was left to keep an eye on Honey. The doctor also gave me an ice pack for my eye. It was starting to sting the longer I Saturday. Sitting in this hospital brings back memories of the most unpleasant moment of my life. I try to distance myself from such thoughts, focusing on Honey laying in the bed. This is the first chance I've had to look at Honey since she jumped last night. She was all covered up in the restaurant. She looked so tired with dark circles under her eyes. I could see scratches and bruises on her face and hands. I wondered if she had them before she jumped over the bridge. I hope she gets the rest she needs. I admitted I almost didn't think I was going to see her again. It seemed every time I laid my eyes on Honey, she was ready to disappear. This was probably the most still I've ever seen her. At that moment Honey seemed to be having an unsettled sleep. She was frowning, and her brow seemed to tighten just a bit. I didn't want to push my luck. Getting punched again was the last thing I wanted. I wondered when the last time this girl had her hand held. So, tentatively I touched a finger first. When nothing happened, I placed my hand around hers. Maybe because Honey was sick, I was surprised at how warm her hand was to me. I had this urge to comfort her, so that look on her face would ease. I spoke softly to Honey, hoping not to disturb her. "It's all right, you know. I'm sorry for being careless. I had no intention of hurting you. Beck and I are concerned about what will happen to you. I have no intention of letting you be without support from here on out. When you're better, I think I have an idea that will help you get started." Watching Honey's breathing rise and fall, I didn't have anything else to say. But it seemed necessary at this moment. The noon sun was coming through the window. Holding Honey's hand put me at ease like I hadn't felt since she walked away from me 8 months ago. It was lovely and warm. I lounged back in my chair and placed the ice pack on my face. Just before I fell asleep, I say, "Congratulations on getting to your freedom. I am happy for you and glad I got to be here to witness it. This shiner is my consolation prize, I guess." Honey cracked her amber eyes and lopsided smile. She whispered, "I can forgive you for being a ding, William, but just this once." She looks me in the eyes and says, "Thank you for what you've done, William." This feeling flutters inside me as I smile at her and say, "You're very welcome, Honey." Holding hands, we fell asleep. The 2 days of almost no sleep were pulling on me. My eyelids closed and I was out.
August 15th, 2030. Honey, I slept 4 days straight, only getting up to eat and use the bathroom. When I woke up after hazy days of half sleep, everyone had left. I have been alone rarely in the last 12 years. It's not so bad during the day, but at night, I sit on my bed curled up tight, staring into the shadows. Then suddenly, the rain started to fall, and I sat there listening to the sound. It put me to sleep. This was the first time I had a dream that I could remember in a long time. I was sitting in my daddy's lap and him talking to me. I loved the way he spoke to me. He was always busy with his schedule, but when it was my time, he would not take distractions. He loved to just talk my ear off. He always took his time, but I loved it. Then he asked me a question. "Baby girl, what are you fighting for?" Curled up on his lap, I say to him, wishing he would never stop talking. I tell him, "I don't know, Daddy. I'm so far from this place. Just getting by with my life was all I know now." Daddy shakes his head at me. Then he made me sit up and look into his eyes, telling me, "Baby girl, that's not true. You are fighting for the same thing I always fought for. The only thing truly worth fighting for. Remember, you wear it on your back as a reminder. Do you remember what your mama told you?" "Yeah, Daddy." I asked what you were fighting for. "She told me that your daddy is always fighting for freedom. You had found your freedom through fighting." He asked me, "What did I always say to you?" I told him, like so many times before, when you fight for freedom, you always have to be the one who wants it more. If not, you're permitting other people to take it from you. He says to me, "That's it, my honeybee. I learned I didn't have to fight it alone. Fighting taught me all the ways I could be free. It started with your papa, then I found your mama, and we had you. You can fight any way you want, with whatever you have at your disposal, even in the darkest place, my girl. You found a light, never losing what you're fighting for. They will gather around you in all your guts and glory, cheering your name. Because when you know, they know." He sat me down and walked away into darkness I couldn't follow. He tells me, I'm proud of you, my honeybee. I woke up from this dream. I sit up and look around like I could find him there in the soft morning light. But he was nowhere. It was just me with his words still in my ears. I found a pad of paper in the drawer next to my bed. I decided it was important to write down every word of that dream and everything I remember him ever saying to me. As I did, I would cry silent tears. All I could do was gasp for air in my silence. I gave serious thought to what I wanted to do from here on out. One thing I know is that I was going to need time. To know me outside of the darkness, learning to understand what I'm fighting for. William and Uncle Bruce came back a couple of days later. I had made a full recovery and was released to go. Before that, we all sat down to talk about my future. Thank you for getting me to help Uncle Bruce. Anytime, my girl. William says. We're glad that you've made a full recovery. It's time to discuss what you want. I have an idea, but we want to know what you're thinking before anything else. I've thought long and hard about this for the last couple of days, making plans and trying to organize my thoughts to give them both an answer. So, I say to William and Uncle Bruce. I need to take this slowly because I'm not ready to deal with a bunch of regular people all at once. I know that if I were to try as I am now, I would fall short of a lot of things. I need 1 year to be a free honey to catch up on things that I've missed out on. William asks. Where would you like to do that? Here would be for the best. I have no papers to travel, and there is no one to go back to. I don't trust the people who were fighting over me. I wouldn't have been in this place all this time if one of them had stepped up to the plate. But I would like to go back and claim what is mine once everything is settled. Bruce says. There may be others that want to dispute your claim, saying you died. Is there anything left to prove that you are Natalie Ledger? Yes, Uncle Bruce. My parents left a lot of stuff in storage thinking it would be safer when they were on the road. My mama kept baby books for me. And there was hair and teeth in those books. When I was looking into what happened to me, I also investigated what happened to my family. My grandmother died in a hospital 4 years ago. Once she passed, there was no one to pass the estate to. There was a clause in the will that if I died it would go to charity, but only on my 21st birthday. I have been secretly paying for the storage lockers for the last 7 years. No one knew about them. Getting me one of those books would help me out a lot. Bruce smiled. Well, I can take care of that. Do you guys have access to the van that was on the bridge the night I went for a swim? William nods. Yes, we've swept it and found nothing but the children inside. Well, before we left there were explosives in an overhead compartment. It was full of shrapnel and C4. Even if she didn't suspect me currently. Once the bomb didn't go off, she would have known it was me once I made my way back. I took it out and replaced it with my duffel bag with my fighting gear in it. The way to access it is on top by removing the center strip on the top of the handle slide. Please bring it to me. William said. I will see what I can do about your bag. Bruce asked. Honey, where did you put the bomb? Well, I look at my phone, it hasn't gone off. I put it in the basement of Victoria's last compound just before we left where we were staying this last time. I carried it in a bag just like mine. All the kids I left have been moved to a different location. It's set to go off at midnight tonight. The compound should be empty. Just where was your last location? The countryside of Italy. Both William and Bruce looked at each other. I just shrugged. What else could I have done with it? She probably tried to blow it once she was clear of the bridge. Finding out that it didn't will piss her off a lot. Believe me, she would have drowned the ducklings if I hadn't. There didn't seem to be anything else they could do about it. They let it go. William asked me, "Is there anything more you'd like to add?" "I would like to be paid for the services I have rendered for the last 2 years." This time William looked at Uncle Bruce. Uncle Bruce just kept the same unreadable face, while deliberating on how to answer me. When Uncle Bruce speaks, he tells William, "Both of our countries have benefited from what Honey has provided. I feel that her services have been shared. Her success came with risks. So, it would only be fair if my friends here matched what the U.S. has to offer our very talented and hardworking young lady here." William asked Uncle Bruce, "Why are you looking at me, Beck? You have more ties to that side of things than I do." "William, you know with one call you can get what you need. I will be doing the same thing from my side of things. It's only fair because we have benefited equally." William asked again, but I couldn't help hearing the slight annoyance at being asked this. Why would that even be an option? Uncle Bruce says to him, "Noah has been calling you every day for 2 years now." William says to him, "Yes, ever since I was promoted the messages are clear he feels I might be worth his attention now." William sounds not only annoyed but also resentful. Maybe even a bit of fear behind that perfect smile he was trying to keep in place. I didn't know what this was about. I would watch and listen as it goes on. I almost lost it when Uncle Bruce said to William, "If you don't grow a pair, he is going to surprise you and we don't want him to surprise us. He has been trying to get a hold of me to get to you. It just puts my teeth on edge." Do your God's damn job, William. William just takes Uncle Bruce's shot. He keeps his tone pleasant and respectful. It didn't really work. I guess if you put it that way, I will take care of it after we're done here. I didn't know what the two of them were talking about. I didn't like the two of them leaving me out of something. I will let it go for now. So, I continued by asking William, "What ideas do you have for me, William?" He clears his throat. Then he tells me, "You're looking for time to reintegrate yourself into society and we want to hide you until things settle down. There is a place close to Kent called the Bacon House." I had to ask, "Why is it called the Bacon House?" William sighed at my question. The man that built it was named Hammond Bacon. I almost laughed but caught myself. When I say to him, "For real," he says, "It may seem ironic right now. He was a man whose family also made their living as pig farmers and bacon merchants." I admit I couldn't contain it this time. I laughed for a good long second at that. William let out another sigh and continued to talk. "Near a place called Toys Hill. Once you're there and you take your time, 23 minutes away is a private school called Seven Oaks. It accepts people from grade school to 16 for admission. While you're staying there, we can provide you with a cover and all the information you need." Uncle Bruce made a statement. "By the way, honey, as of 3 days ago, your body was pulled out of the Humber. Alongside your driver. The unknown Jane Doe, known as the Leona B, is now dead. We will be broadcasting the incident on national news. With your death day photos and a coroner's report about it." I just nod. I thought about William's offer. It wasn't long for me. I had no better ideas at the moment. No other plans to do anything else just yet. At least with this place I knew someone and wasn't starting from scratch in a completely unknown country. I knew London well and have a few friends in the area if I wanted to get away. So if this didn't work out in my favor, I know I had options to leave. I will have to see how this goes. So I tell them. Okay, William, I will do it. He says this a little too excitedly. Really? I roll my eyes and nod. Yes, I will. William says to me. All right, I will make the arrangements. In the meantime, keep a low profile around the city. I say. I will. Bruce and William left after they made the preparations. Days passed and I recovered. Sitting in bed was too much. Exercising to make up for doing nothing. Dr. Meili de came to check on me. I was doing leg lifts hanging from the corner of the room. She says to me, "That is very impressive, you're in good shape." I didn't know how to take that. I make a neutral comment. Thanks. She comments to me. Are you bored, honey? I nod and speak. I'm just not used to doing nothing. Sitting still when I could be doing something is frustrating. For the last few days, Dr. Meili de has been taking care of my medical needs. Making a complete chart for me, and helping me fill out my medical history. Listing all of the injuries and accidents it consisted of, 2 broken noses and corrective surgery to fix them. A stab through my foot, the gunshot wound to the shoulder, a cigar burn on my thigh, gashes between my breast, an ugly red scar from a blade wound that curved down my navel and around my left hip just above my butt cheek. Whip marks all over my back. I have 10 tattoos and 1 brand mark. As we counted all my scars, Dr. Meili de kept a face that was both calm and pleasant. She didn't ask me how I got them either. She only wanted me to be honest about all the injuries I've accumulated and any medical treatment I've had. After listing them all, she has my blood work and records updated. I asked her where she was going to keep my file. She told me that anything that concerns Uncle Bruce goes into a secure place. Uncle Bruce said that she is the smartest and most capable person he knows. That I can trust her. Dr. Meili de made sure to take care of all my needs personally. She was a very beautiful woman. Her mannerism was graceful, classy, and never in a hurry. As we got to know each other, I was able to trust her. When it came to her job, she was very serious. That was something I could admire her for. On the inside of the CEOs there were always several big strong men. Most of the women who were trainers saw me as a competitor for resources and attention. So, this was the first time in a long time I'd been in the company of an older woman. I didn't count Victoria or the other bitches they kept around for peace among her people. When Dr. Meili de speaks, it's always clear and respectful. That is a very focused attitude. You're allowed to do what you want. So, would you like to go shopping with me? I asked her. What for? She smiled and said. For everything or anything. I was a bit too excited at the idea of going shopping for myself. Really? My neutral face slipped a bit. Dr. Meili de laughed at my excitement. Yes. I hesitated and said. Bruce and William told me to keep a low profile. It's not that I was going to follow the rules to the T. But I didn't want to make this any harder for the people helping me. Who knows if Victoria had anyone else in London? Dr. Meili de said to me with a bit of a challenge to her voice. They said not to draw attention to yourself. They never said you couldn't go out. I have an idea. You go and clean yourself up. I will be back. Dr. Meili de left and came back with clothes, a bunch of brushes, and hairdryer, and pink and black cans of spray color. Once I was clean and dry, she sprayed the sides and underside of my hair black. using a small roller brush to make it even on the sides and a larger one for the long hair. Then the top side pink using the dryer to set it in my hair. She braids it once it is dry. I stop to look at myself in the mirror. Wow. That is awesome, it's a really nice look. I was in love with the bold color. I love bold and flashy things in my deepest heart. Even though I try to avoid dyeing my hair when I can. So the natural yellow blonde of my hair doesn't fade. I prefer braids and over-the-top styles. Dr. Meili de says to me, "I figured you would like it." I say to her, "You're good at this." The doctor said to me, "Don't be so surprised, I was a professional dancer until I was 25. Doing hair and makeup was very important." I had to ask her, "Why, become a doctor?" She shrugged and said to me, "Because dancing and healing people are some of the things I've wanted to do. I've traveled the world as a dancer and a doctor. I've made a difference as a doctor and a dancer as well. No matter what my work, no matter how hard I did them, I loved them, I was fulfilled by them. These are just some of the dreams I've made for myself." I asked her, "Did it pan out the way you wanted?" She shakes her head. Not even once. It was fun watching my plans fall apart to become something I needed. I had to ask her, "How did you meet Uncle Bruce?" She tells me, "That is a fun story. Get dressed, I will tell you on our way to town." I couldn't wait, so I dressed in a hurry. Inside the bag was a bunch of black and pink clothing. The logo read Cat's Paw. The hoodie was sleeveless with pink cat ears on the hood, the shorts were black, leggings and arm warmers are pink and black stripes. Pink cat face mask and sunglasses, black and pink sneakers had cat's paws. It was a sassy-looking logo. They weren't lame or childish. Punk and rock. I admit to myself I loved it, but said nothing about my likes or dislikes. I go to the mirror one more time. All I say is, "This will do," Dr. Meili de said. "I am glad you're enjoying it. My receptionist Betty Lou picked it out for you. Bruce has told me about you. I figured you could use a few things and some fresh air. Normally I would never fall in and trust anyone. In the time I've spent with Dr. Meili de, she takes her job very seriously. I've cooperated while I'm here. I have mapped out an escape route from the roof. If I see this going south, I have a way out. I was happy to go anywhere at this point." Riding down to the front lobby meeting Dr. Meili de's receptionist, Betty Lou. For some reason, she looks like Bruce's receptionist Mary, and Dr. Meili de stopped and passed her lab coat to Betty Lou. Betty Lou is a curvy woman, with wavy brown hair and brown eyes. Her nose was round, and her cheeks and face were a lovely heart shape. Slightly tanned skin, and her face didn't have lines. I couldn't pin her age down. Betty Lou could be in her late teens with the way she dressed. She could be pushing 40 for all I knew. She looked just like Uncle Bruce's receptionist Mary Ann. When Dr. Meili de asked her, "Betty Lou, hand me my purse, please. I will be out for some time. Take messages. If it's important, call me." Betty Lou answered with an American accent and speaks, "Yes, ma'am." I say as we pass her, "Thank you, Betty Lou, for the stuff." She smiled at me and spoke, "You are very welcome, Miss Honey. It was my pleasure to have a good excuse to go shopping for others. Does everything fit you all right? You're about the same size as our little sister." I ask. Our sister. She nods her head and says to me, "Oh yes, my twin sister is Mary Ann. She works at the office of Bruce Beck." I said, "I knew it." She just nodded and said, "Yep, we get that a lot. Anytime you need something, you just call one of us, and we'll get you what you need." I'm good at sizing people up, and Mary Ann is good at knowing just what they need. I think about that. Thank you, Betty Lou, I'll keep that in mind. I make a note to get their direct contact info. You bet, my dear, and here you go, Dr. D. Once Dr. Meili de grabs her purse, we're out the door and in her car. She starts driving north. At first it's quiet, then I ask her questions. She tells me stories about her and Bruce. When I was 23, I had just completed my 5th dancing tour of Europe. I was taking some time off. My father was invited to a party at the British Embassy. He was also itching to show me off to all his rich friends. He was proud of me. It was always his way of showing me how much he loved me. It was a stuffy place full of men and mind games. After I met over a dozen senators and their sons, even a prince or two, I became bored with the atmosphere. So, I slipped into a library open to guests. I headed straight to the classical literature section. He was leaning on a shelf, hiding behind Dickens. I reached for Jane Eyre. I couldn't help myself. He was very handsome. The doctor gave a sigh that sounded flirtatious. In a black tuxedo, he seemed uncomfortable wearing. Reading a few pages, then looking up from my book to see him standing there. After a few times, we caught each other in these glances. I looked at him, and he at me. I gave him a bashful, shy smile. Looking back at his book, the corner of his mouth lifted into a grin. He closed his book, walked over to introduce himself, and we sat in armchairs talking until his boss came. I slipped him my number and address. He would call on me until I went back on tour. I say, "How long is a tour?" The doctor said, 6 to 8 months. I've never heard of a relationship like theirs. I asked her, wanting to know, "Weren't you worried he would be unavailable the next time you met?" On the inside, men and women would have flings and affairs, some of them trying to make favorable alliances, doing the whole boyfriend and girlfriend thing. It mostly didn't work out. Things like that made me sick thinking about how wasteful they were to play so many unnecessary games. I had never heard of something like what the doctor had with my uncle. I was fascinated and wanted to know more. She told me I should have. Every one of my girlfriends would ask the same thing. Maybe it was all the letters we sent, or all the long phone calls, or that he would go to all my local shows. Maybe it was the fact that whenever I came back the first day I spent with my parents, he was there on the second day leaning on my doorstep. It didn't cross my mind that he was going anywhere. This story was the most interesting thing I've ever heard. There is next to nothing about Bruce Beck that can be found on a web search. I asked her, "What next?" The doctor's tone became more serious. At 24, my mother passed away from cancer. It hit me hard. I stopped dancing, shutting myself in at home. After months of locking myself in my room, my father was grieving and working, and my friends were concerned. I didn't know that Bruce was in a place I couldn't reach him. Months went by without me thinking about Bruce. He just escaped my mind. One day a letter slipped under the door of my room. When I asked my household, no one saw. And it was Bruce's handwriting. It was what pulled me back to myself. After that, I went to college to become a doctor. I traveled to become an expert in alternative medicine. Bruce and I never lost touch all the time. Twice a year we would spend vacation time together. Most of the time it was him coming to see me. I was given this house after my father passed. I turned it into a clinic. I asked her several questions. When did you two get married? She thinks and speaks. Well, if you look at it from modern standards, we have no official documents that say we were married. But we were married by an elder of a horse-riding tribe I'd been studying from. I was 26, he was 32. The only witness was a man Bruce considered his brother. That made me pause because I was curious about the life Uncle Bruce refuses to talk about. I didn't stop to ask Dr. Meili de about my family or what she might know. I asked her more questions about herself and Uncle Bruce. Do the two of you have kids? She shakes her head. Nope, between our jobs, when we were together, we only wanted to be in each other's company. We don't share a house, we don't have kids, and we go months without seeing one another. We are both dedicated to our jobs. Having an unknown marriage in the eyes of most of the world, that is how we like it. She tells me. With Bruce's work, it was always better the fewer people knew. But when I get run down, he usually does right at the same time. He will be leaning on my doorstep wanting to know my plans for the next few months. We go to lunch sometimes and that is it. I was amazed at this story, I could imagine it all. A charming young Bruce. Dr. Meili de secretly just ran away as no one noticed. Living on like there was nothing different about them. It was different in the most beautiful way. I couldn't even understand it completely, I just knew that it was kind of right. I was never patient when it came to romantics and sexual stuff. Never liked playing games or letting anyone see me like that. It drove me nuts thinking about letting someone get that close. At least not till I had met Moxie and she convinced me it was something I needed to gain more control over myself as a woman. Long conversations with her cured me of any kind of shyness or awkwardness. Us girls would get together and talk about all kinds of things. They were feelings that held me back. Moxie showed me that I could take care of myself without involving others. Moxie helped me to see those things differently. It helped me be more aware of others and what they might want from me. Dr. Meili de's attitude about this stuff was awesome. I'd never heard a story like this one anywhere before. We spent the rest of the car ride talking about different things. Asking her questions about her life. How she got to where she is. The different ways she carries herself. I determined for myself that Dr. Meili de was a good person. Getting to know her was very important. We get out of the car, I already have my hood up and my cat mask on. We ended up at a large marketplace down by the riverside. There are several street vendors and even strips with large name brands. I ask, where do we go first? She says to me, that is up to you, what do you want? I didn't hesitate to say, I want clothes, lots of clothes. She says, okay, the first rule of shopping is you can have it if you can carry it. I flex an arm and say, I think I can do that. We hit up the big brand stores. I bought so many hoodies, tees, tank tops, jeans, blouses, leggings, shorts and underwear, glorious new underwear. Not to mention ladies' toiletries. First aid things, Dr. Meili de helped me with that stuff. I even grabbed a bag of Starburst. Dr. Meili de was surprised at my bold colors and pattern choices. This would be the first time I could dress the way I wanted to in a long time. We walked by vendors and bought food. I would try on clothes while she watched the doors. I got myself a new phone, a laptop, and a tablet. They will do for now until I can get a hold of my good stuff. I had so many shoes in my bags that I abandoned most of the boxes. Then we found a sporting goods store where I buy gear for boxing and working out in. I enjoyed myself. Dr. Meili has been to as many places as I have. I talked to her about parkour and all the different places I've done runs. She talks about all the people she's treated. The things she's learned about people. Even some of the more dangerous places. I found that I could talk to her about a good many things and that we have a lot in common. Dr. Meili followed my lead on looking out for danger. She listened to me every time I asked her to cross the street or duck into a random store. She and Uncle Bruce must have had a long conversation. Because she was neither annoyed nor impatient with me. To me it was fun, but I had this nagging feeling someone was watching us. We went to a gothic place called Cold Subject. I kind of lost myself. There were pants with chains and a bunch of spiky stuff. But I saw that the quality of the metal was low, so I bought 2 pairs of pants. I planned to alter them once William brought me my bag. I asked Dr. Meili, "Are there any hardware stores around?" I get a look from the doctor. She says to me, "I will check my phone." There was one. We went back to the car. Dropped off what we had so far, and then she drove us a couple of blocks. It was Wiseman's Hardware and Home Improvements. It may have leaked out, but I was so happy. I had my money card always taped to my back with duct tape. Just in case I ever needed it. Plus, the money I managed to save when I jumped over the bridge the other night. I had more than enough to get what I need and more. I didn't know what I'd be doing in hiding, so it's best to give myself something to do. She walked with me as I pulled things into the cart. What I liked about her was that she didn't ask me questions. There were a lot of things that were hard to explain. I came from this place that I had adapted to. I had to learn things, or I would fall to the strength of others, bigger, faster, more flexible, and more experienced. I learned to make my armor to help me to keep standing. We got back into the car and drove a few streets. As exciting as it was for me to get new clothes, this was like my arts and crafts store. I grabbed a cart, then I started putting things in. I grabbed black and gold steel wire rolls, barbed wire, nails and screws of different sizes, Velcro, a soldering gun, a case of different pliers, wire cutters, a hand drill, a small hand saw, some wood pieces, and a couple of small pipes, plastic, and a lot of glue and duct tape. Dr. Meili went to go pull the car around. While we were in the store, a storm started to build up. As lightning flashed overhead, my skin started tingling. The feeling like someone was out there following me was there. I pull my hoodie as low as I can. I looked left and right. I scanned the crowds and all the little nooks and crannies for anything. Then I saw down an alley, a figure was standing there. A nightmare comes back to haunt me. He was very far away from me. J.J. Sticks was walking towards me. He looked haggard and aged, but it was him. His pace was steady, and his gaze was piercing through me. It shocks me, and my heart begins to pound, but it didn't stop me for long. Assessing my options, running without knowing if he had a gun may not work, people might get hurt. I looked at what was at my disposal. All my stuff was in the cart before me. My hand found the duct tape and barbed wire. I started wrapping it around my hands. Lucky the wire cutters were right on top. All I could do was watch and wait. At that time, I watched his movement. The way he watched the crowd, he didn't notice that I had seen him. I walked behind my cart and grabbed my phone. Switching my camera to selfie mode. watching him pretend to stalk me as I walked down the street.